Indonesia, with its more than 17,000 islands, is a big archipelago country. On August 17, 2022, Indonesia issued a new series of rupiah banknotes comprises 7 denominations. The rupiah has become more than a medium of exchange in Indonesia. It is also a symbol of national identity, sovereignty, and pride. Bank Indonesia employs the following sophisticated and state-of-the-art security features in the 2022 rupiah banknote series. Altogether, the elements combine beauty, security, and durability. Rapid HD detects microlenses security threats with dynamic motion effects to prevent counterfeiting, appearing in the Kawang batik motifs, an Indonesian cultural legacy. OVMI Spark, which is the embedded security elements with dynamic color changing and motion effects, strengthening rupiah security with the unique appearance of the moon orchid endemic to Indonesia. Ultraviolet UV fluorescence and phosphorant technology, which produces a wider variety of colors along the broader UV illumination and contrast, depicting the cultural beauty of Indonesia and preventing counterfeiting. The luminescence of each island specific to the birthplace of the national hero, adorning each rupiah banknote, adding uniqueness to the design. Moreover, aimed to prolong its circulation life.
The story of ASEAN begins with an understanding of the virtue that regional cooperation can bring. It begins with a clear vision that to overcome future challenges, countries of Southeast Asia need to stand together. Indonesia is proud to be a part of ASEAN, where each country has its own uniqueness, where cultures are versatile with a hint of similarities. In the 2023 chairmanship, Indonesia celebrates both our similarities and differences. We also invite you to discover Indonesia and all its diversity. From the glorious Sumatra, the majestic Java, the dynamic Borneo, the lively Sulawesi, the spiritual Bali, to the exotic Papua. While vastly different, we believe that the uniqueness of each culture is one of the things that make Indonesia special. This is why the diversities within ASEAN countries should be embraced. Because amid the differences, we can only be stronger through solidarity. ASEAN Matters, epicentrum of growth.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has been at the center of regional cooperation since 1967, when 5 countries signed the ASEAN Declaration. Over the years, more countries in the region have joined the association, making it more effective and impactful. ASEAN has proven its value with various economic achievements, including in trade and connectivity. Throughout the pandemic, ASEAN further strengthened its members' cooperation, which includes the establishment of a COVID-19 response fund. But the struggle is far from over. While countries are now better equipped to manage COVID-19, we are still facing the economic impact of the pandemic with the daunting threat of high inflation and recession. In times like these, regional cooperation becomes more important than ever. ASEAN countries need to stand together to rebuild from the pandemic. With the 2023 ASEAN chairmanship, Indonesia is ready to lead the region in strengthening cooperation in various fields. In the finance track, 3 priority economic deliverables are established: recovery, rebuilding, digital economy, and sustainability. Together, ASEAN countries and invitees will hold discussions to make sure that the deliverables are achieved. Because if there's anything that the pandemic has taught us, it is the importance of working together to recover, to grow. ASEAN Matters, epicentrum of growth.
This afternoon. Once again, we kindly ask you to please take your seats as we will start the seminar very soon. Thank you.
than 17,000 islands, is a big archipelago country. On August 17, 2022, Indonesia issued a new series of rupiah banknotes comprises 7 denominations. The rupiah has become more than a medium of exchange in Indonesia. It is also a symbol of national identity, sovereignty, and pride. Bank Indonesia employs the following sophisticated and state-of-the-art security features in the 2022 rupiah banknote series. Altogether, the elements combine beauty, security, and durability. Rapid HD detects microlenses security threats with dynamic motion effects to prevent counterfeiting, appearing in the Kawang batik motifs, an Indonesian cultural legacy. OVMI Spark, which is the embedded security elements with dynamic color changing and motion effects, strengthening rupiah security with the unique appearance of the moon orchid endemic to Indonesia. Ultraviolet UV fluorescence and phosphorant technology, which produces a wider variety of colors along the broader UV illumination and contrast, depicting the cultural beauty of Indonesia and preventing counterfeiting. The luminescence of each island specific to the birthplace.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. A very special welcome to Governor of Bank Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Peri Warjio, Governor of Banco Central Filipinas, His Excellency Mr. Felipe Medalla, ASEAN Central Bank Deputies and Delegations, Assistant Governor of Bank Indonesia, Mrs. Filianingsi Hendarta, Deputy Secretary General of the Financial Stability Board, Mr. Rupert Thon, Managing Director of GoPay, Mr. Budi Ganda Subrata. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nadira Titalia, and it is my greatest honor to welcome all of you here in Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center, 28th of March 2023. Welcome to the high-level seminar from ASEAN to the World Payment System in Digital Era. let us welcome Governor of Bank Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Peri Warjio.
Thank you very much for, bringing the metaverse of the world for tomorrow now. I think this is, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this today's seminar. Please welcome my dear fellow governor. We have Governor Medola from Bangko Philippines. Give a big applause. And all of our deputies, among others, always my dear friend, Deputy Managing Director of Monetary Authority of Singapore, Mr. Sing Siong, and also the Chairman of Senior Level Committee of the ASEAN. Thank you for coming. And of course, we have also from the FSB, Mr. Rupert Thomas. Welcome, Rupert. And my dear Assistant Governor Fianes Hendarata, my digital lady, who is now soon to be the Deputy Governor of Bank Indonesia, and my dear fellow Budi from the, of course, from the GoPay. Thank you, Budi. And Ben will be chairing this meeting. Welcome. Welcome. This evening, we will bring tomorrow digital transformation now through the ASEAN Chairmanship of Indonesia 2023. We just saw the dances of digital. But let me just provoke you. Imagine, next, when I come to Dempsey, Xinjiang, my love going to Singapore is to Dempsey. Dempsey, have a nice dinner. We can have seafood, we can have Italian, whatever. But after that, the favorite of me is buying durian in Singapore. Durian coming from Malaysia, of course, Musang King, and from Bangkok. And of course, Montong. Imagine, Ben, the seller of those durian tell me, Mr. Governor Peri Warjio, thank you for coming again and again buying my durian. But I will tell you, I just buy government bond of Indonesia, only $10 Sing using handphone. Can we do that? Yes. This is cross-border payment connectivity. When actually we can do cross-border economic and financial transaction just a touch of handphone. Soon. Not long ago. Imagine my friend from Thailand. Now it's already. From Thailand into Indonesia, I just imagine going to Chiang Mai, play golf there, and then I can pay caddy there, not through baht, with my money, just tapping my cell phone. Already, Thailand and Malaysia, Indonesia already connected with the QR, fast payment. And now Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and soon Philippines will join. Cross-border payment connectivity. This is what we are discussing now. Some of the opportunity. But let me start with updating you and also provoking you about why under Indonesian chairmanship in ASEAN 2023, we bring the theme of ASEAN Matters. Indeed, ASEAN is matters. Has been matter, now matter, and the future is matter. Let me just give you 3 reasons. 1, ASEAN is the epicentrum of growth. Last year, over the ASEAN 5, we have 5.3 economic growth. One of the highest in the world. On average, ASEAN 5, 5.3%. This year, we expect about 4.7%. And, of course, will rising to 5.6% 2024. ASEAN matter because, one, ASEAN is the epicentrum of growth. Number two, why ASEAN matter? Because all of the good policy are in ASEAN. About how the discipline and monetary, how the monetary and fiscal policy coordination, as well as the stability in the financial system, structural reform, ASEAN matters, all of the good policy are also in the ASEAN. Number three, digitalization. That we will talk about today. ASEAN is the fast-growing digitalization in the world. Thanks to our young population, wide use of internet, and fast-growing, vibrant startups. One of them we have here, GoPay, Gojek, and others. And we are look around ASEAN. So many startup, vibrant transformation in digital and forming digital ecosystem in the economic and finance. We are seeing the rising of unicorn, hexagon in the ASEAN. This is not only because of we have young population and a lot of digitalization, internet, but also because we are determined. We have in the ASEAN, which is what we call it, ASEAN Digital Integration Framework, moving the ASEAN into digital transformation, not only supporting economic integration, but also in ICT and the cross-border regional payment connectivity. But of course, if we talk digital transformation, ASEAN is also the home of about 600 crypto assets, as well as also blockchain companies, which is growing quite fast, which is about 3.5% growth in 2021. There is some benefit. Of course, there is also some risk of this crypto and blockchain, as we saw in the global financial colonization, where crypto is one of the issues that we discuss, and Robert knows about this, about regulatory super framework of the crypto. So there is also some risk in the digital transformation. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to discuss in this session. How we advance digital transformation, especially the payment system, to support ASEAN economic and financial integration, yet bringing also about financial inclusion and mitigating the risk of digital transformation. This is very important. This is the topic that we will discuss today. And this is why, under Indonesian chairmanship in the ASEAN 2023, in the financial track, digital transformation, one of the strategic thrusts that we will advance in this 2023 to ensure that digital integration is not only critical in harnessing for the integration of the ASEAN region, but also for financial inclusion and also mitigating the risk of digital transformation. Of course, we have a lineup of the good speaker that will talk about this issue. Just let me outline the three important things how we need to bring this digital transformation on the payment system to bring about inclusion, economic recovery in the ASEAN, as well as also mitigating the risk. Number one, we need to advance further regional payment connectivity. This is our ambition. This is our mission. And we already moving to that direction. November last year, among the 5 central bank already signed here in Bali under leaders G20 Bali, which is also my president, Joko Widodo, also testimony on that event. Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, we are committed to integrate and interconnectivity on the cross-border payment system in the 5 areas: QR, fast payment, as well as data, RTGS, and also local currency transaction. We already moving that. So under this year, we will advance this, not closing the gap among the 5, but also with other ASEAN. So my dear fellow and the ASEAN member state, we invite you to join regional payment connectivity. Not only integrating ASEAN cross-border payment system, but also to advance further how digitalization, how cross-border payment system can support our economic recovery, financial inclusion, as well as also to support our global hub. And this is, we also just yesterday or just 2 days ago, we also already together signing also connectivity with BIS hub on the Nexus. So this is why from the ASEAN 5 to all of the ASEAN and the global cross-border connectivity. So ASEAN will lead the way and becoming example cross-border payment connectivity to support the economic, financial inclusion, as well as on how we bring about some also regulatory and supervisory framework. Number 2, how we need to address the crypto. This is very important. To address the crypto, we have to do 2-pronged approach. One, of course, working closely with FSB, BIS, how to bring about the global regulatory and supervisory standard and practice to ASEAN. Robert will tell you about it. But to my knowledge, we have to work together because there is no single model of regulatory and supervisory in the world. Yes, we have the guideline, same activity, same risk, same regulation. But how to implement? Under Indonesian law, we have already mandate for both central bank and financial service authority to regulate and supervise what we call it this crypto asset. But crypto asset linked to not only trading, institution, customer protection. This is belong to financial service authority in Indonesia. But if we talk about payment system and exchange that belong to central bank, this is why we have to see the model how a country can jointly among the agency coordination and collaboration to have a regulatory and supervisory approach to crypto. This is where FSB can bring about the best practice to ASEAN. But dealing with the crypto is, of course, we are obliged to speed up the development of central bank digital currency. Because at the end of the day, the private digital asset need a reference, a medium of account, sovereign digital currency. This is where central bank digital currency need to be promoted in the ASEAN. Indonesia, we already passing what we call it consultative paper, we already issue. And in the mid of this year, we started to develop the project design of digital rupiah under project Garuda project. And in the future, digital rupiah, CBDC of Indonesia, will be the only sovereign digital currency. For private asset, digital asset used as reference, medium of account. This is what we need to approach. That's number 2. 2-pronged approach in dealing with digital financial asset. For central bank to issue CBDC, and then working closely with other regulatory and international how to regulate as well as to supervise digital financial asset. Number 3, this is also important. What we need to work closely in this area, which is closer coordination in regulatory and supervisory of cross-border. We talk cross-border payment system for economic and financial transaction. Then we have to talk about regulatory and supervisory. How regulatory supervisory of payment, national payment system in Indonesia need to also be coordinated, be cross-border, and also working together with Malaysia, with Singapore, with Thailand, because oversight and supervisory of those payment systems belong to each of the country, and we have to leverage on how we have collaborate on that. Beyond that, we have to look into the governance structure, because regulatory and super oversight of cross-border payment system not only about technicality of interconnection, interoperability of technical infrastructure of payment system. That's one thing. That's the layer number 1 of governance in the cross-border regulatory and supervisory. 1, interconnectivity and interoperation of technical cross-border infrastructure. That's 1. But beyond that, we have to work on the oversight and regulatory of cross-border. We have to have collaboration. But the third aspect on the governance on how the impact of this cross-border payment system on exchange rate arrangement, on capital flows management, on the impact of monetary and financial stability. This is the issue of governance that we also talking in the global initiative, especially on the BIS governance committee. We discuss on the governance of cross-border payment. So once again, Robert and BIS and FSB, we're looking for you to give the guidance, 1, on the regulatory and supervisory of the crypto that we can use. 2nd, on how the governance sector of the cross-border payment system. Not only technicality on the interconnection, interoperability, but oversight, rule and regulation, and also policy aspect on the exchange rate and capital flows management. So, my dear fellows governors, deputy governors, all of delegates of the ASEAN First Minister and Governors meeting here in Bali under Indonesian chairmanship of ASEAN 2023, welcome the future of digital now. We are already starting. Let's have a discussion on how to bring about more closer cross-border payment system to support our economic inclusion as well as risk mitigation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Please kindly remain on stage, sir, as we will take a photo session. And I would like to invite Governor Felipe Medalla. Also, I would like to invite Deputy Managing Director of MIS, Mr. Leong Sing Kyong, Deputy Managing Director of Brunei Darussalam Central Bank, Mrs. Nurafida Sulaiman, and all speakers and moderators. Please join us on stage as we will have a moment to have a photo session. Please allow me to count backwards, sir, in 3, 2, 1. Alright, smile once again in 3, 2, 1. Alright, thank you very much. Please kindly return to your seats, Your Excellencies. Please kindly return to your seats. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Alright, distinguished guests, Now we will begin the panel session with the topic of payment system in digital era. Before we start, allow me to share a bit background from our moderator for today's seminar. He is Mr. Benjamin Lee. Mr. Lee is a public finance professional with 15 years of experience in public sector in multilateral development finance institutions. Mr. Lee has a proven track record in both public policy formulation and execution, working closely with governments and regulatory agencies across Asia. Mr. Lee previously served as Singapore's appointed representative to the executive board of the World Bank Group and on international finance matters at the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Mr. Benjamin Lee is currently assigned to the new Bank for International Settlements, Innovation Hub, or BIS in short, to establish office operations and manage ongoing innovation and technology project. All right, without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Mr. Benjamin Lee.
Good afternoon. Hello? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, selamat siang. Thank you, Governor Perry, for the very inspiring words of wisdom early on, and really set out the important work that we're going to be discussing in a little bit. For those of us fortunate to be physically present today, we are gathered in the beautiful Indonesian island of Bali, the island of the gods. We are also connected to attendees around the world who are watching via a live stream. So this truly is a panel in the digital era. As the MC had introduced, my name is Benjamin Lee, and I'm now serving as the Acting Center Head for the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub in Singapore. And it's a real pleasure for me to moderate this afternoon's high-level panel on payments in the digital era. Let me kick this off by first introducing our illustrious panel. And I suppose I can invite our panel to join us as I invite them up. First, we have Ibu Filianansi Hendrata, who is the Assistant Governor and the Head for Payment System Policy Department at the Bank of Indonesia. Ibu Fili? So a bit of introduction. Ibu Fili was born in Surabaya and completed her undergraduate education in law at Airlangga University. Subsequently, she received her master's degree in economics and finance from Boston University in the US. Ibu Fili started her career at the Bank of Indonesia in 1986 and currently serves as the head of Payment System Policy Department since 2019. Presently, she is in charge of leading the transformation of Indonesia's payment industry in the digital era through the implementation of Indonesia's Payment System Blueprint 2025. Ibu Fili previously served also as the head of the Monetary Management Department and Head of Macroprudential Policy Department. So welcome, Ibu Fili. Next, we have Mr. Rupert Thorne, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Financial Stability Board. If you can invite Rupert up. So welcome, Rupert. A little bit of introduction to Rupert. At the FSB, Rupert coordinates international policy initiatives to strengthen the financial system and promotes consistent implementation across sectors and across countries. He has been in this position at the FSB since 2009, and from 2005 and 2008, he was in the Secretariat of the FSB's predecessor, the Financial Stability Forum. Prior to the FSB, he worked at the IMF for 11 years in departments that oversaw multilateral surveillance of mature financial markets and debt management policy advice. Previously, he also spent time at the Bank of England, mostly in operational areas such as money market operations, government debt issuance, and foreign exchange reserves management. So welcome to Bali, Rupert. Last on our very illustrious panel, I'd like to invite Pak Budi Gandeso Brata, who is the Managing Director of GoPay and the Head of Compliance for GoPay Financial. of introduction to Pak Budi. Pak Budi took on the role as Head of Payments Compliance at GoPay in 2018, and he was instrumental in GoPay's rapid growth in Indonesia's leading financial electronic market. Currently, he holds the position of General Secretary for Payment System in Indonesia's FinTech Association, AFTEC. And Pak Budi also obtained his Bachelor of Science at Fontys University of Applied Science in the Netherlands, where he studied electrical engineering. And I understand he's also doing another sort of master's in public administration currently. So welcome, Pak Budi. Thank you for joining us. So we have a very illustrious panel. Maybe before we even start the discussions, if I could provide a little bit more context, although Pak Perry had already set out the big picture for us. But let me just contextualize today's discussion. The focus of today's high-level seminar is on the very apt and important topic of ASEAN to the world, payment systems in the digital era. Digital transformation has had a significant impact on financial services, especially payments. The expansion of internet access and mobile phone penetration have been key drivers in this shift and was accelerated further by the recent global pandemic, which saw significant shifts in payment behaviors towards instant digital payments. In the Asia-Pacific region, non-cash payment volumes have risen significantly, 28% from 2016 to 2022, and expected to continue growing at a healthy 17% over the next 10 years. And of course, here in Southeast Asia, there has been a similar acceleration in the adoption of contactless payments and credit card payments. This transformative potential that digital payments has been making, particularly in driving financial inclusion and enabling widespread economic activity, both domestically and beyond, has led the Indonesian ASEAN chair to make this agenda of modernizing payment systems to be fit for purpose in this digital era a top priority. The focus on payment systems has been echoed by many, including my General Manager, the BIS General Manager, Augustine Custins, in a speech in 2019 on the future of payment and monies, where he noted that both money and payment systems are essential for the functioning of a modern economy, and that worldwide, two trends have been driving this payment system design. First is on speed, and second is on globalization. The G20 presidency under Saudi Arabia in 2020 continued this, and this was continued through successive presidencies, including the Indonesian presidency last year, commissioned the FSB and CPMI to put forth the important G20 roadmap for enhancing cross-border payments. And in 2022, an update was provided to move the roadmap's 19 building blocks into practical projects that would enhance payment systems, and we'll ask Rupert a little bit more about that in a little while. But moving to cross-border payments, at the vanguard of the following through on these developments within ASEAN, the ASEAN 5 central banks, Bank of Indonesia, Bank Negara Malaysia, Banco Central de Philippines, Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the Bank of Thailand signed an MOU last November at the sidelines of the Indonesian G20 summit to cooperate in ensuring regional payment connectivity by strengthening interoperability of the region's payment initiatives. The RPC for short, and under the stewardship of the ASEAN Working Committee on Payment Settlement System, WCPSS, is expected to be a significant contributor to accelerating regional economic recovery and promoting inclusive growth, and covers 5 modalities, including the promotion of QR and fast payments. In fact, as Governor Perry had also mentioned, a key effort to promote multilateral fast payments, the 5 authorities had also come together last week in Basel to announce their desire to build on the BIS's Project Nexus initiative, which is an effort to connect the country's fast payment systems so as to facilitate instant cross-border payments across the region and beyond. A third phase of Project Nexus is now live between the BIS Innovation Hub's Singapore Center and our 5 countries, and aims to facilitate the required design processes to be able to multilaterally connect their domestic fast payment systems, and to scale this even more widely over time. So stay tuned for further developments in the next 12 months. And I assure you, as Governor also brought out, a lot of the focus, besides technical compatibility, will be to look at things like whether we can build a viable business and revenue model, and also appropriate governance frameworks for the entity that will own, maintain, and manage the Nexus scheme. So we talked about opportunities. Let me just also very quickly cover some of the risks that come with this new digital era And that's related to things like crypto assets. So apart from benefiting from the developments and opportunities from payments in the digital era, countries, including those in ASEAN, also need to anticipate emerging risks in the payment system, such as crypto asset-related risks. So crypto assets have been drawing a lot of attention. Although crypto assets remain still a small part of the overall asset base in the global financial system, its growth has been rapid. And so if crypto asset continues to be significant and their linkages with large institutions continue, this could have an impact on global financial stability. So to address this, the FSB had proposed a set of high-level recommendations to promote consistent regulatory framework. The high-level recommendations seek to promote consistency and comprehensiveness of regulatory supervision and oversight, and to strengthen international cooperation, coordination, and information sharing. The recommendations apply to any type of crypto asset activities and associated issuers and service providers that may pose risks to financial stability, and are complement with the high-level recommendations on global stablecoin arrangements. So in this case, ASEAN member countries too need to consider the importance of building a consistent crypto regulatory framework and to address the emerging related risks. So I've covered quite a bit. Let me invite our speakers to each share a little bit some of their substantive thoughts before we go into a more open Q&A. First, can I invite Ibu Fidi to kick us off, please?
Thank you, Ben. Honorable Governor Perry, Governor Felipe, DMD Sinchong, and also DMD Ibu Nur Afida, and also distinguished DG and AG from the Asian Central Banks, distinguished speaker, Pak Rupert, and also Pak Budi. And ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to all of us. And first of all, let me extend my appreciation to the committee for arranging the side event and give us a chance to share our view on digital payment in digital era. So let me start by making 3 key points. First, as Governor Perry mentioned, the future is here. And the second, think big, start small. And the third one, even though this is not in line with the COVID protocol, but we have to do that. Let's get our hands dirty. It's not clean, but dirty. So let me start with the slide. I will share several slides here. So the first is about the future here. So take Indonesia as an example. During the pandemic, we see shift in preferences has been feasible with the digital payment like a QR and also digital banking have gained traction. And Indonesia as a country with almost 70% of population with their productive age ranging from 15 to 64 years old, they are really is prone to absorb digitalization. And all of us also agreed that the future money and the future payment are undoubtedly digital. So, what lesson could we learn? There will be no room for us just to sit and wait. Because we know that the advent of the novel technologies has galvanized effort to improve the speed and also the security of the payment, and also bring down the cost and also broaden the access of the financial services. So this applies not only for the domestic payment, but also for the cross-border payment. And on the slide 3, we can see here the progress in the domestic payment has been rapid. And in Indonesian case here, rise of digitalization in the payment has been tremendous with the blueprint, 2025 Indonesian payment system blueprint. This is emerged as a game changer for Indonesia. Let me elaborate further. We have 3 points here. The first one, we do the regulatory reform. So why? Because in response to digitalization, we found the urgency to move from the entity-based approach regulation to the activity-based approach. Previously, we have 135 the payment system regulation, but now have been streamlined into only 8 regulation accordingly. So it's provide more clarity to the industry to comply with the regulation. And the second one is the standardization. So early 2020, we established the National Standard QR Code for Payment. We call it CRIS. Once again, CRIS is not QRIS, it's not QRIS, it's not KIRIS, or even CRIS. This is CRIS. We call it CRIS. So to date, CRIS has been connecting around 31 million users and also 25 merchants, and 91% of the merchants are micro enterprises. So similarly, we also have a digitalization in transportation and government transaction, including the domestic credit card scheme are ongoing right now. And we also established the National Open API Payment Standard, we call it SNAP, and on July 2022, we launched it, and it facilitates the open interconnection between the application in payment, and thus level the playing field between the bank and the non-bank, allowing the healthy innovation and also competition to grow. And the third one is the payment infrastructure. So we launched the fast payment, we call it the BI Fast, at the late of 2021 as the instant, secure, efficient, and 24/7 retail payment system. It managed to cut down the transaction fee by 60%, and also provide the settlement services in central bank money for 126 banks and non-banks, and it's presenting 94% of share. And in February 23 alone, it processed around 129 million transactions and amounted to 351 trillion rupiah in value. But we have to admit, if we see on the slide 4, we have to admit that progress in the cross-border payment has been less impressive compared to the domestic payment. To this end, we welcome the FSB building block. Later on, Pak Rupert will elaborate further about the FSB building block for a roadmap to enhance the cross-border payment. I bet it will clearly set out the necessary element of a response to address the high cost, low speed, limited access, and also insufficient transparency. And as a positive response, 5 of us, BI, MAS, BOT, BNM, also BSP, have agreed on the regional payment connectivity, RPC, which will serve as a building blocks for the payment collaboration in the region. And it comprises of 5 elements here. First is the QR interoperability. Second is the fast payment interconnectivity. And the third is the API standard. And the fourth is the RTGS interconnectivity. And the fifth is the data framework supported by local currency settlement and also the local currency bilateral swap agreement as a basis of its currency arrangement and also the capital flow management. So then question arises on whether it is possible for us here to arrive at a concrete and more doable solution immediately. So this brings us to my second point. Think big, start small. Why is that? Because achieving cross-border interoperability means we connecting different the domestic payment environment with widely varying architecture. And it is incredibly complex and certainly takes time. Hence, we need to practically and simple in our approaches to allow for more concrete and immediate impact. So the RPC lies on 2 key strategies. First, start with the 5 central banks in Asia as a first mover to maintain a high degree of controllability. And then later on, we will move to another 5 central banks in Asia, or even another central bank in the region or in global. And the second, reap the low-hanging fruit by prioritizing the most doable and immediate solution. And this is avoiding the big bang. So in this respect, we start with the QR border, interoperability, and follow suit by the multilateral fast payment interconnectivity. This allows us to let the public, because seeing is believing, and then we will let the public immediately experience on how faster, cheaper, transparent, and more inclusive the cross-border payment looks like. And then question remain on what need to be done. And it brings us to my final point. Let's get our hand dirty. We know making the strategy possible will require us to move beyond conceptual discussion, not only talking, but need the action, the real action. So heading toward the phase of experimentation and implementation. Let's us roll out our sleeve and familiarizing ourselves with a bit and a bite of the interoperating different payment system and services. And as I mentioned before, we start with the QR cross-border interoperability. We have the QR cross-border interoperability with the BOT, and we manage to interop both countries' QR, connected at least 50 payment system provider. And it make citizen in both country experiencing and conduct the faster, cheaper cross-border payment. And the transaction has been continuously growing since it went live last year, and it will continue to grow. And in February, if we see on the data, February 23 alone, it records more than 12,000 transaction. Initiative is also have been widened to other country. We will have a connection with Singapore, Malaysia, and also Japan and India. So next year, we'll be establishing a common multilateral platform for the cross-border fast payment interconnection. So as Pak Perry mentioned, that we just recently, 5 of us have joined the BIS Innovation Hub, third phase of Nexus project to prepare the scheme, governance framework, organization structure, business model, technical standard, technological requirement. So later on, we will have a clear roadmap toward implementing the multilateral instant payment network. So we believe that with this strategy, we are heading toward combining population of about 500 million people in the region. So this is, let me wrap up my presentation with the last slide. We have 3 takeaways. First, the future is here. So we need to be swift and acute in responding digitalization. To this end, the RPC will serve as a building blocks to achieve faster, cheaper, transparent, and more inclusive cross-border payment in the region. Second, think big, start small. We know given the complexity in realizing the cross-border interoperability, we need to be practical and simple in our approaches to allow for more concrete and immediate impact. And last but not least, we need to move beyond conceptual discussion. With that being said, let's get our hands dirty. So let me stop here, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bu Philly. It was very, very comprehensive. Definitely a lot for us to chew on, and we should definitely get our hands dirty. Next up, we have Pak Rupert to share with us his thoughts also from the FSB's perspective.
Thank you very much. And thank you to ASEAN, to Bank Indonesia, to Governor Perry for inviting me to present to you today. I'm very grateful. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with you all about 2 closely related areas of work, the the global roadmap being coordinated by the FSB to enhance cross-border payments, and also the international policy work on crypto assets. I look forward to discussing further with the other panelists the implications for the region as we go along. Next slide, please. Enhancing cross-border payments is a priority goal for the G20 to bring benefits for international trade, broader economic activity and financial inclusion, both for SMEs and for individuals sending remittances. Technological innovation is bringing great opportunities, but at the same time, cross-border payments face additional challenges and frictions beyond those that domestic payments face, which can lead to relatively higher cost, lower speed, more limited access, and less transparency, as his Assistant Governor described. In recognition of this need for international action, in 2020, the G20 asked the FSB to coordinate a roadmap to enhance cross-border payments, in close coordination with other standard setters and international bodies, notably the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures, or CPMI, the IMF, the World Bank, the BIS Innovation Hub, and FATF. The roadmap was launched as a comprehensive approach to enhance the existing payments ecosystem and also to explore newly emerging payment infrastructures and arrangements such as CBDCs and stablecoins. The first 2 years of the roadmap laid the foundations through the necessary stock takes and analyses, and under last year's Indonesian G20 presidency, we launched the next phase of the roadmap work, focusing on practical projects to enhance payments. Next slide. This new phase has priority actions designed around 3 interconnected themes. The first theme focuses on improving payment system interoperability and extending RTGS operating hours and access policies, aiming in this way to shorten transaction chains and reduce the related frictions. The second theme is to promote an efficient legal, regulatory and supervisory environment for cross-border payments. Among other actions, it seeks to improve the consistency of regulation and supervision between bank and non-bank payment service providers and address issues that may limit the access of non-banks to payment services and to financial market infrastructures. Finally, work under the third theme will focus on facilitating cross-border data exchange and increase the use of standardized messaging formats for cross-border payments. Next slide. Work in these 3 interrelated areas will contribute to achieving the numerical targets that have been set for cross-border payments that are set out on these slides. I pick out just 2 of those targets: to reduce the global average cost of payments to 1% of the transaction, and to have 75% of transactions completed within 1 hour by 2027. Next slide. Strengthening engagement and partnership with the private sector will be a key element of the next phase of the roadmap, and this will help to achieve the requisite investments and partnership in executing practical projects. We're also engaging a broader range of authorities from jurisdictions beyond the G20. We can learn from each other, including to improve the interoperability of different regional systems. Indeed, partnerships in this region are helping to lead the way in improving interoperability. The Regional Payment Connectivity Agreement in November last year that we've heard about is one example, connecting systems across Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore and Thailand. Another is the interlinkage of India's UPI and Singapore's Pay Now as a bilateral link model that makes extensive use of APIs. And the Project Nexus of the BIS Innovation Hub is reaching out with a proof of concept not just within Asia, but reaching out to European instant payment systems as well. We plan to strengthen sharing of knowledge across regions in several ways, through collaboration on specific projects, such as those I mentioned, to strengthen interlinking, through a CPMI community of practice, to exchange experiences among central banks on payment system interoperability and extension, through technical assistance in the identified priority areas, and through the FSB's regional consultative groups, including the RCG for Asia that many of the institutions here today are a member of. Next slide. So, our work on cross-border payments brings me next to the subject of crypto assets. One factor that has helped spur the development of the crypto asset ecosystem is dissatisfaction with the existing system of cross-border payments. But it's by no means the only factor, and as we all know, motivations such as speculation have also played an important role in crypto asset growth. Crypto assets raise a wide range of issues for policymakers. This Venn diagram illustrates that there are overlapping elements to a comprehensive policy approach. The FSB coordinated framework for financial regulation and supervision of crypto assets is a distinct element within this, but it links with the macro-financial aspects in which the IMF and BIS are involved, and the conduct and AML-CFT work, including that of the FATF. Next slide. The macro-financial issues for authorities have been well set out in an IMF paper last month. They can be categorized in three areas: internal stability, covering monetary policy effectiveness and sovereignty, financial stability and fiscal policy effectiveness and sustainability; external stability and the international monetary system, including capital flow stability, the credibility of the global financial safety net, or GFSN, as well as access to an efficient and integrated cross-border payment system. And thirdly, the structure of financial systems, encompassing intermediation and market functioning, financial inclusion, innovation, and environmental sustainability. So a huge range of issues. How important these implications are in practice depends on a variety of factors, of course. Whether the amount of use of crypto assets grows to a size to have systemic importance, but also the characteristics of the countries in question. The rate of adoption of crypto assets has generally been greater in emerging markets than advanced economies, and may pose particular challenges for countries that are applying capital flow management measures. Next slide. The FSB's focus, as ever, is on financial stability. We're working to ensure that crypto assets are subject to robust regulation and supervision in the same way as traditional financial assets, grounded, as Governor Perry said, in the principle of same activity, same risk, same regulation. We're organizing cross-border and cross-sectoral cooperation among national financial authorities and international standard-setting bodies. In October last year, we issued for public consultation a comprehensive set of proposals consisting of recommendations to promote the consistency and comprehensiveness of regulatory, supervisory, and oversight approaches to all crypto asset activities and markets, and specific revisions to the FSB's high-level recommendations for regulation and supervision of so-called global stablecoin arrangements. The finalized recommendations we're now drawing up will learn lessons from the events of the past year, such as the collapse of FTX, which have highlighted the intrinsic volatility and structural vulnerabilities of many crypto assets. Incidents such as this brought to the surface weaknesses in areas such as safeguarding of client assets, conflicts of interest in entities performing multiple functions, and the need for cross-border coordination. And while the technology behind crypto assets is often being promoted as game-changing, the vulnerabilities associated with them are in fact often quite similar to those we know from traditional finance. Liquidity mismatches, hidden leverage, and counterparty credit risk are all examples of well-known financial risks that have also materialized in crypto asset markets in the past year. Next slide, and my final slide. The public consultation on the FSB recommendations ended in December, and we'll be issuing our finalized recommendations in July. The G20 has asked the IMF and FSB to submit to the G20 in September a synthesis paper integrating the IMF's macroeconomic perspective and the FSB's regulatory perspectives on crypto assets, taking into account the IMF paper in February and our final recommendations in July. And they've asked that the synthesis paper analyse the overall macro financial risks and develop a policy approach for consideration of G20 ministers and governors in October. We're very conscious that the global nature of crypto assets means a common approach by the jurisdictions within the G20 is not enough. We've therefore emphasised the importance of the policy work programme by the FSB and by standard setters, establishing a global framework of regulation and supervision, including in non-FSB member jurisdictions. We can only achieve our goals both for regulation of crypto assets and for promoting safe cross-border payments through participation from all regions of the world, not least in the ASEAN region, which is why I very much welcome being here today. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Rupert. And no, thank you for the work as well that the FSB has been doing, setting up both the opportunities and also reminding us about the risks that lie ahead. Thank you very much. Now, for our third speaker, if I can invite Pak Budi to share with us, again, your perspective being very much at the forefront of driving a lot of this digital change and payments in the region. Pak Budi, please.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am both honored and humbled to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So my presentation is more or less just to touch upon on the things that we have done in GoTo, specifically in GoPay. But I would probably start by introducing about who GoTo is, what we do, and I think this is also relevant just to set the stage, especially on the payments activities and how this can be expanded further in the cross-border use cases. Now, in the earlier part, I think Governor Perry mentioned that if he goes to Singapore, he likes to visit to Dempsey. Mine is a bit different. I like to visit to Lau Pa Sat every time and I think my one-day dream is that whenever I go to get my chili crab or my yong tau fu or my prawn noodle, apologies, it's the holy month of Ramadan. It's I'm a bit more invested towards food at this moment. It's a critical hour. But the dream is obviously how can I conduct payments using my mobile phone, especially with the recent investment in QR technology as well as fast payments. And similarly, if I visit Manila, for example, if I get my fix of adobo or my personal favorite, Jollibee, then the dream is also the same. How will I be able to do payments using my mobile phone in order to purchase this and immediately deduct it from my sources of fund, be it an e-money balance or even a bank account? So I'll start upon probably by introducing who GoTo is. Next slide, please. So GoTo today, we are a unique ecosystem that are complementary to each other. We have 3 business units, e-commerce, on-demand services, as well as payments and financial services. I can cautiously and confidently say that we are Southeast Asia's first platform that really combines these 3 business units: on-demand services through our ride-hailing, food delivery services and logistics, and then we have our e-commerce marketplace services, as well as financial services to our payment, e-money businesses, as well as buy now, pay later, and working capital loan services. Next slide, please. So GoTo today, we have 3 units. Gojek is the on-demand services. So for friends who are in Indonesia, I hope that you have been using our services, especially GoFood, GoRide, and whatnot. GoTo Financial is the umbrella that houses all the payments and financial services. GoPay, where I am today, is the e-money, e-wallet service provider. But we also have other merchant-facing businesses such as Mistrans, a payment gateway, Mocha, a POS service provider, as well as Pay Later, a buy now, pay later product, which we offer to our users and our merchants as well. And we do have Tokopedia, which is, I guess accurately, is the Amazon of Indonesia. So it is one of the largest e-commerce marketplace in Indonesia. So next slide, please. GoTo is essentially your GoTo ecosystem to fulfill your daily needs, not only from the consumer side, but also on the merchant side. On the consumer side, the idea is how can we fulfill your daily needs from food delivery, logistics, sending couriers, ride-hailing and whatnot. And essentially, everything is tied using GoPay as the payment service provider that really helps to transact and facilitate payments in all these different use cases. On the merchant side is also the same. we do have platform that enables our MSME merchants to start selling online. So we have Tokopedia, for example, but we also have Midtrans that helps smaller merchants to sell and transact online and get access to payments from different payment service provider, as well as also helping them to book their transaction, to also answer inquiries from their users, and ultimately also using data that we collect from our users and merchants, we are also able to provide working capital loans through our own licensed entity, as well as partnership with other banks and financial institutions as well. So next slide, please. So if we focus a bit on GoTo Financial, GoTo Financial today, we are helping MSMEs in adopting digital solution. I believe we have done a pretty good job in helping MSMEs to expand their market. So for example, we used to have MSMEs that are located, let's say, in the southern part of Jakarta, but through digital payments and also in collaboration with Tokopedia and Gojek, we have been able to expand the market further to just beyond North Jakarta, but also to South Jakarta, Eastern part Jakarta, or even in the outskirts of Jakarta, such as Bekasi and Depok. And of course, Bank Indonesia have also been instrumental in also basically creating an overdrive on expanding the market further by promoting interconnectivity and interoperability. So today, these merchants can also accept payments not only from GoPay, but also through QRIS, can also accept payments from different payment service provider, be it other e-money service provider, or also other banks with their m-banking app. So GoTo Financial today, we have been able to provide a lot of payment services to our merchants. Some of the statistics here have proven that some of our merchants actually are first exposed to digital payments when they first use our products. In some cases, this is their first foray into the online digital payment space before they have been only selling offline in their own proximity. So next slide, please. If we look at Southeast Asia as a region, we do realize that the opportunity is tremendous here. We are one of the fastest growing economy in the world. This is just some of the snippets of the research that is done by Google, Bain, and Temasek from 2019 to 2022, which I am sure most of you are familiar with. So if you look at the total population, which is today 686 million and growing, but if you look at the right-hand side on some of the statistics, every second there's about 3.1 million emails sent. There's about 141 terabytes of internet traffic, and also my eyesight is not serving me right here. There's about 99,000 of online searches being conducted every second. So you can see that the opportunity is there because we're a mostly young population. We are technology pretty savvy, but at the same time, in some regions, there are still a high population that are still underbanked as well as unbanked. So the opportunity to grow and expand further, especially on the digital payments and the digital financial services, is tremendous here. And this is where the industry and the regulators can go hand in hand and collaborate each other on how to really push a lot of these payments and financial services provider even further to really access those who are currently underbanked and unbanked. Next slide. Now, especially post-pandemic, we have seen that the recovery is steadily progressing, but we do realize there are headwinds and challenges ahead. Now, if you look at the macroeconomic environment, especially with the recent events in 2022, especially with the war in Ukraine and then some of the energy crisis, we are seeing challenges. But again, I think the outlook is still pretty confident, and we are seeing that tourism will be a critical piece, especially in helping economic recovery, especially in the region. Now, I have been fortunate enough to be in Bali more than 5 times in the past 2 years, and each time I visited here, it's always an improvement. I see more people coming in, I see more tourists visiting, and of course, to improve that even further, how can we actually facilitate payments, especially for the incoming tourist that is coming to Bali or Indonesia, and also vice versa? How do we help Indonesian tourists that visit Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, to be able to conduct cross-border payments as well? Next slide, please. Again, I think as I said earlier, intra-ASEAN cross-border travels will be a key growth driver enabled by the improvements element, including seamless and connected payments. Now, as said earlier by Ibu Fili, by Rupert, by Benjamin as well, QR payment is actually one of the key initiatives that is done by different regions. Indonesia, we have KRIS. I hope I'm not mentioning it wrongly, Ibu Fili. Not QRIS, but it's KRIS. In Philippines, you have QRPH. In Singapore, you have SGQR. In Thailand, you have PromptPay. Every single QR standard is based on EMV co-standard. So the basis and the fundamentals foundation is already there to enable interconnectivity as well as interoperability between these QR standards to enable cross-border payments, especially retails, especially for incoming tourists and also outgoing tourists from the point of view of Indonesia. Next slide. Again, I think in the region we are seeing cash usage is still prevalent, which means there is still opportunity to help users to migrate from cash into digital payments. And again, with Bank Indonesia and also other central banks in the region that have been promoting QR-based payments, this also enables the hook or the jump from cash users to digital payment users, especially in helping MSMEs to cheaply and cost-efficiently enable payment acceptance, especially on their end. Gone are the days where merchants, MSMEs need to have an EDC terminal, which can be costly, but today with just a printer and an image file, they can start accepting payments in QR, and then it will be facilitated by a lot of payment service providers that is already participating in the standard itself. Next slide. Again, I think just to touch upon a bit on QRIS, today GoPay as well as other payment service providers such as OVO, Dana, ShopeePay, Link Aja, other banks such as BCA, Mandiri, BNI, and other banks as well. We have been participating in the national standard of KRIS, not QRIS, KRIS, where KRIS has helped in expanding the market accessibility, not only for us as the payment service provider, but also the merchants. So today, merchants can start accepting digital payments. And again, with the infrastructure of fast payments, the settlement of the funds to the merchant account can be done also on a real-time basis. So again, for merchants, especially MSMEs, where liquidity matters, this also helps in their day-to-day operations as well. So today, QRIS, just to touch upon a bit on the statistics, Ibu Fili has touched upon, but I'm just going to focus especially on the bottom part. Today, we have 22.7 million merchants, and I believe the number is also growing. I believe Governor Perry has also set quite an aggressive target as well. So again, the homework is still big, especially for us to help and expand QRIS even further. Not only for retail payments domestically in Indonesia, but also in the future for cross-border payments as well. Next slide. Again, these are some of the efforts to promote regional payments connectivity. Again, there are the cross-border QR initiative, that Ibu Fili mentioned earlier as well. There's the fast payment initiative that is being done, the open API standard, which will enable much easier connectivity and interoperability between these different switches or fast payment service provider can also be critical, especially in deploying some of these real use cases. Again, eventually, these initiatives will be also critical in providing, as I said earlier, financial access, especially to multiple user segments, starting from the unbanked, underbanked users, non-digital users, so that they can be first-time user of digital payments, as well as existing digital user to expand the use case even further. Next. Now, this is my last slide, just to really illustrate what has happened, especially in Indonesia. So this is just an example of multiple MSMEs. You can see the GoPay branding, so it's clear that this is within the proximity of our office. So QRIS has actually enabled a lot of merchants in accepting digital payments. This was actually their first time in accepting digital payments. Now again, as I said earlier, right, my dream is to be able to pay for a chili crab using my GoPay app using SGQR. Or even if I go to Manila, my dream is to be able to buy sisig or adobo, or again, my personal favorite, Jollibee, using my GoPay app using a cross-border QR. But my other dream is for foreign tourists to come into Indonesia and also help our MSME to grow even further. As I said earlier, I think the industry today in Indonesia and Bank Indonesia, we have done a good job in expanding the market of these MSMEs. Wouldn't it be beautiful if these MSMEs can now have an international market that they can tap into as well because of cross-border payments? Thank you very much, and I hand it back to you, Benjamin.
Thank you, Pak Budi. So the benefit of having an illustrious panel is they've taken away most of my questions. So I'll zoom in a few, but I do want to also leave time to open up to our audience here to ask questions. But maybe as a moderator, I have a prerogative to ask a few questions first. Maybe just directed to Ibu Fili to kick us off. It's a broad question, but it's also maybe a challenging one. In your view, why is cross-border payment essential for economic recovery?
Well, we can address it from 3 points of view. The first one is from the payment resiliency point of view. Digital payment has proven to be effective in keeping and maintaining the activity, the economic activity during the pandemic. And we also believe that this also applies in the term of the cross-border payment. And the second point of view is from the economic interaction. Nowadays, we see that the return of physical interaction cross-border increase, and we believe the cross-border payment also can remove the friction and ease the mobility and also support the economic recovery. And the third one, from the economic efficiency. So we believe that the faster, secure, cheaper payment services and system also can promote the economic efficiency, and at the end of the day, it also can improve the productivity. And we also, it will also apply in the term of cross-border payment. As we know, the majority of the jurisdiction adopt an open economic regime.
Thank you, Mufti. Maybe just as a quick follow-on, and somewhat related as well to the RPC initiative that you've been working on, and we spoke a lot about. What would you say, and I think you've covered a little bit of it as well, but the expected benefits for RPC in the region, and what would success look like to you when things are implemented?
Yeah. As we know, the RPC, as I mentioned before, the RPC will be serve of our building blocks of the payment cooperation in the region. So this is, RPC is a form of our commitment, the Asian commitment to the G20 mandate, and of also the FSB roadmap, how to create the more transparent, more inclusive, cheaper, and faster the cross-border payment. And also the second, the RPC also as a guide for us, so we know on the strategizing and also determining the priority on what should be done first, So this is the guide for us to have the low-hanging fruit, how to choose it, and pick the concrete and real and doable solution. And we believe that, as I mentioned before, we have 5 elements. So we believe that with the collaboration and also adopted the international standard, we can do it together.
Thank you, Bu Fili. Maybe next question I'd like to address to Pak Budi. We spoke about how GoPay, GoTo has been sort of really at the forefront of disrupting and transforming digital payments. Bu Fili earlier on spoke about how the future is here. How do you see the future's future? So how do you see this changing in unfolding, and what trends and technologies do you think will shape the industry in the coming years?
Thanks, Ben. Obviously, the future is, there's still a lot of homework. So for example, I see there's a lot of digital payment acceptance from a payments point of view, that the service is already expanding, but the main use cases is still happening, especially in the urban areas. So the question is, how can we expand payments further, digital payments, especially on the rural areas? So this is where, the use cases, collaboration, especially with other payment service providers, with regulators, with services such as marketplace, can be critical, especially in helping people to move forward or migrate from a cash-based payments to digital payments. And eventually, once that first hook is achieved, then a lot of the digital data that can be unearthed because of the historical transaction, especially on the consumer side and the merchant side, that can be beneficial, especially in helping building credit scoring. And this is where truly offering of digital financial services such as loan financing and whatnot can only be achieved, especially if digital payments can already be rolled out, especially in the region. So that's where I see where the future lies, especially more services in the rural areas. Not to mention that I think we will see a day where people will be much more tolerant in leaving behind their wallet rather than mobile phone. So a lot of it will be based on mobile phone, whether you want to invest, whether you want to save, whether you want to pay, or even do other payments and financial services.
Thanks, Prabhuti. From a payments geek, I must say, it's an exciting future to look forward to. Let me turn to Rupert now, maybe to ask, again, quite an open question. We talked about how do you, from your perspective, balance the need for stability and security in the financial sector with this desire for innovation and change, and part of what we've been talking today?
So, I mean, of course, there's no simple answer to that. I think in many ways, it's really fairly similar to traditional finance. What one wants to do is set minimum standards to give people confidence, to give the market confidence, to allow safe innovation to take place, not to try to direct which technology or which solution is going to be the winner, but to create a level playing field with basic levels of market integrity, consumer protection, financial stability protection. So the standards the trick here is the standards need to be technology neutral, but at the same time, they need to be responsive where needed to new types of risks. And to draw out a specific example there, I think some of the crypto asset issues that we've seen recently have seen multifunction intermediaries combining different functions that over decades we've learned to separate out from each other in terms of custody, trading, and so forth. So-called decentralized finance that turns out to be centralized after all. So the trick is to be technology neutral, but to be aware of these new, of potential risks of that sort. And in that way, we can leave room for bodies like yours, the BIS Innovation Hub, to be the creators, to be the innovators with GoTo, with individual central banks, to leave them ready to innovate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rupert, for the plug. Now, exercising my moderator's prerogative, I could invite, we have a special guest, Governor Felipe Mandela from the Bank of Philippines, to maybe also share his thoughts of how he sees the, future of payments happening and evolving in Philippines and maybe even this region. Governor, please.
Well, my impression is, of course, Indonesia is ahead of the Philippines, right? And we do want to catch up. But there's quite a bit of progress in the Philippines. For instance, in 2013, there's hardly any digital payment. Now, 44% of payments in value is digital. Well, that's actually 2021. The number for 2023 is probably higher. And more than 30% in volume. Now, similarly, the checks writing checks is becoming less and less common. You have a batch processing system called PesoNet that settles twice a day, and that is now overtaken checks. In addition, what's being described is that, of course, companies that's very, very similar to your GoPay, like in our case, we have two companies that's big now, GCash and Maya. By the way, every time I speak about these two companies, I want to sound fair, so I call them G-Maya. So that I don't seem to be favoring anybody. But that's growing very fast, and financial inclusion is rising. If we had waited for banks to onboard them, it would have taken, at least 5 more years. Of course, there are problems because in some areas, internet is not very good. For instance, we have a QRPH program, and we now have programs in test programs in several cities. In some cases, it works. Like one market I went to, I paid for taho, which is really what? Tofu. That is sweet tofu with caramel. Very unhealthy, but very delicious. Okay, too much sugar. But in another place, the connection. I went to another market trying to buy halo-halo, which is the. Then it wouldn't work because my phone just went like this. Okay, so there are many problems to solve, and of course there are areas without internet connection at all. So these are the main challenges. But be that as it may, there has been tremendous increase in merchant payments, P2P payments. For instance, it's been a long time since we went to wet market. Our own family. The fish, the meat, the vegetables get delivered to our house, and we have two choices of making payments: either InstaPay, because we have the QR code of those who deliver, or we can make payments directly to his bank account. Okay, so and then. Now, of course, salaries and wages are also more and more being paid electronically. And we can actually, our vision is every worker can choose his own banker. Because what prevents any company from just paying directly to the bank account of every employee? Because right now the problem is the employees are literally captive of the banker of his company. Of course, InstaPay is reducing that significantly because, okay, your banker may be X, but you really like banker Y, and it's now so cheap to transfer money, so that your banker, who is maybe the one with the better service, better. By the way, like it or not, better ATM machines, because sooner or later you may need cash, and so on and so forth. So these are the things we're doing in the Philippines. Then, of course, as already said, we are really, our vision really is to be one with the ASEAN 5, to have cross-border payments. And in addition, we are, of course, looking at cross-border CBDC, where also wholesale. We don't think, our own view is there's no need for a retail CBDC, where you can have 24/7 cross-border transfers, even when the RTGS systems are not on. So there are many exciting areas, but of course it has to be a whole of society approach. As I already said, maybe more satellites. Now, of course, because of this, we actually find all sorts of ways of getting around it. There was one bank in the Philippines that, because of poor internet connection, not everybody has. There are many barrios that do not have. The people do not have phones. What they did is combine the motorcycle. So they can now actually do banking if somebody in a motorcycle has his iPad, and literally becomes a little mobile banker on his own. So all this, by the way, Filipinos, since we use Spanish, English, and they call it manibela, which is, manibela is really the steering wheel, but money is spelled as M-O-N-E-Y. So those are, okay, a lot of progress remains because there are lots of problems. But we are confident that how long will it take before we get to this our cross-border? What's your forecast?
Well, actually, we already moving.
Yes, but when will it be happening? as you were saying, eating your adobo in, paying for your adobo 3 years? Maybe, or just too long? Less than 3 years.
After you coming? Or? The voice, I think.
Yeah. So
Practically, Indonesia, Thailand is already connected.
Yeah, so
Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia
Philippines.
already connected. Indonesia, Malaysia already connected. If this come, actually the voice already interconnected.
So maybe Philippines, maybe in 2 or 3 years, we
Welcome.
We'll be there.
Anything that we can help you, Governor.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Governor. That is in framing it for us, and definitely, at least from the next slide, will help to, make this 2-year goal a reality. With that, I think we've come to the conclusion of this very exciting session. It leaves me to thank again both, Governor Perry and Governor Felipe for joining us, and of course all the guests, and of course my very illustrious, panel who made it so easy and such a joy to be here today. Thank you very, very much. I wish you all a great time in Bali. I hope everybody gets a good time, using your mobile payments to pay for durian, salad fruit, or anything you may desire. Thank you very much. Let me pass it to the MCs.
All right, let's give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Please kindly return to your seat, and we thank you again very much. All right, distinguished guests, as much as we want to continue this fruitful discussion this afternoon, I think we deserve a quick break. We will have 10 minutes break, and please kindly return here, and we'll continue the last session for today's seminar, which will discuss strategy to further enhance financial inclusion. So, without further ado, let us welcome, while you enjoy your break, Bali Live Entertainment.